Welcome back. Welcome back, Soulful Society. As you can see, we made it on video.
Here we are. Welcome. For those of you finding us for the first time, or you're all finding us on video for the first time, I'm Kit Noonan.
And I'm Kaelynn Serena Stanton. Welcome to Soulful Wellness, where our goal as certified coaches is to simplify wellness for you, to ride alongside you on your journey to feeling your U.S. you, to becoming who you want to be, but staying authentic the whole way.
So a little about us. We met at Georgetown University in the Health and Wellness Coaching Program back in 2019. We have been attached at the hip ever since and started the podcast version of Soulful Wellness April 2nd of 2020 and are now joining the video world. 4 years later, almost 4 years later.
We made it to video. Who would have thought it would take so much brain power to do that?
Yes.
That's neither here nor there.
So here we are, and a little about our background and things that come up frequently on the podcast. We are what we like to call recovering perfectionists, or more succinctly, imperfectionists, because despite our best efforts to do things perfectly, that never works out for us. So we're just living life the best we can there. And then we often touch on the angst and anxiety that comes from living life.
Yeah. Just being human.
Yeah. So we make a lot of mistakes being out in the world, or even inside in the world.
Yeah, it doesn't discriminate.
Doesn't matter
right?
where we are.
Inside, outside.
So we have this new little segment we're going to kick things off with called Up of the Week. Kaelynn said, "Here's my note. How do I choose?" Which, so on brand.
Seriously. Are we starting with me this week, you said?
We are,
okay,
because you're doing sort of like the theme of ups.
There's like many ups. First of all, being that totally killed my Christmas tree. And I knew this about myself. Yeah. My husband and I are self-aware enough to know that like plant parenting. Yeah, I know. It sounded awful close to
plant parenthood.
Well, it is plant parenthood.
That plant parenthood is a stretch.
It's difficult. So I mean, I even did what I was told. I checked on the tree every day, but I saw water in there, so I figured all was well. All was not well. Yeah. Okay, we got to probably like a week after Christmas, and this tree is shedding. This tree is turning a different color, and I'm realizing, is this the lighting? Why does it look
the
so
lighting's like different ever since we hit that winter solstice?
So weird. Just feeling a different mood, this tree. So it was turning reddish brown.
Yeah, chameleon Christmas tree.
Yeah, exactly.
Go on.
And I finally gave in and realized like January 7th, all right, it's time. This is actually a fire hazard. So first up was killing the tree. It's absolutely shedding everywhere, changing colors. So I asked my husband if he would help me on this adventure to, I don't want to say get rid of said tree, lay this tree to rest.
It's sad, and I realize you're trying to be gentle, but at a certain point, now or in another week, maybe two if you really stretch it, you got to get rid of the tree.
Yeah, it was mainly like
never meant to stay forever.
The thought of the fire hazard just really pushed me along. So we proceed to, I still want to be delicate. Get rid of the tree, okay? Get the tree out of the house. And as we're doing it, there is pine needles all over the place. We decide to toss said tree off of our balcony onto the ground to get it out of the house, which actually wasn't a part of the
No wonder you're feeling guilty now.
I know.
Like, thanks for your service. Jump.
Bye. So that actually went well. But then as the cleanup progressed, I f***ed up our brand new hardwood floors. As I'm like vacuuming, JC leaves the house to go get a broom because we didn't have one of those. And
it happens.
I drag the vacuum back because it's acting all weird, and I just create a massive scratch. And
like
I'm even
floor
scared.
divots.
Yeah. On our brand new hardwood floors. Not really sure what to do about that. Please email us if you know. And
the email is going to go something like, replace the floorboards.
Yeah.
But
yeah. And then during this Christmas decor demantling,
which is always sad in and of itself.
It really is. I was not looking forward to this, and I'm like feeling all productive. I'm trying to get like something positive out of it. And then I proceed to get all excited about, okay, well then I'm going to take the hooks off the mantle, the command hooks that were hanging the stockings. I felt confident because I successfully did it with the different hook downstairs, and I just thought I could conquer the world after that. You know how they have the sticky tabs?
I know exactly what you're describing. Yes, they're designed specifically to be removed successfully, non-scarringly.
Right, non-scarringly. So there I go. Got really too excited there, overly confident, and now we have paint chips in our brand new mantle. So those were my f***ups of the week.
Yes, way to be human.
Thank you.
We like to say here on the pod.
Thank you.
All right. I had several myself, and then I think what it's going to turn into likely is whatever's the most recent to when we record, because just a few hours ago, I was at work and I was putting a stack of books onto a shelf. No big deal. Something a toddler could do. No problem. But in the way I have of just being colossally klutzy, I call it spazzy hands. I actually have a name for it. Spazzy hands. Spazzy hand is when all of a sudden it goes rogue. It's usually my right hand. This one, I think it was both, just goes rogue and like, it's weird. I don't love it. But I managed to knock over what's the plant that everybody has that grows
Monstera
so well, and then
Pathos?
you can yes, that's it.
Okay.
Because you can cut them and then put them in water and they
yes,
root
they're like
themselves.
Starfish.
So I love them because I'm like, prosper.
Right.
Be prolific. Go on. So I have them all over in my house, and it worked because to me it's like, oh, this is, just the plant that keeps on giving. This one in particular was in a vase of water that was probably about 2 cups worth of water. It goes everywhere. You wouldn't think that 2 cups of water could spread the way this spread, and it made a really loud noise. So in the split second following this event, this trigger to a reaction, my boss calls out, because you couldn't miss it, calls out from her office, "What broke?" And it was the perfect question. And this is what I'm going to remember. And I offer this to everyone to take forward. That simple question reminded me of a really important mindfulness piece that I want to chat with you about today. And I'm springing this on Kaelynn because I want it to be completely authentic.
Okay,
and this really important piece that we know, and we're coaches, and we've been trained in this stuff, and we use this stuff all the time. But I realized when she said, "What broke?" and I paused, I was getting myself worked up to berate myself and be really mad at myself and send all those negative messages about how horrible and klutzy and careless and whatever. She broke through with that question, and I went, nothing broke. I had a mess to clean up, but that is not the end of the world. Nothing irreversible happened. Nothing that 5 minutes later would even be evident happened. And all the berating and negative self-talk I was getting primed to do was pointless, because that question that I need to remember to ask myself, I shouldn't need somebody else in the world to ask that. I need that all-important pause step. Remember when we were studying our John Cabot Zen mindfulness, and there's the action or the event that triggers everything that comes after. But one really important step is pause. And that pause affords you the space to regain presence, be present in the moment, to assess, and then respond instead of react. I was getting primed to react. React is negative. React is not healthy.
Right.
But because my boss's question caused me to pause, I was able to respond. And my response was very different than my reaction. My response was to start cleaning it up. And 5 minutes later, it was fine. You could still see where it was on the floor. But in the way the universe has, the man who's going to tile what is now carpeting in the near future came just like within 20 minutes of this happening. It was like the universe saying, see what not a big deal this is, because that carpet's going to be ripped up soon anyway. So the fact that you could still see, and I admitted to him, I knocked that over, because now you can see it had water in it again. I knocked that over, and he was like, oh yeah, no big deal. And I was like, yeah, you're right, it's not. I was ready for it to be, but it's not.
Yeah. I love that. I love that the universe works in mysterious ways, and we're so appreciative of her doing her synchronistic dance and this is a really interestingly timed topic, because I feel like just this sense of frustration and berating of myself as well for like not being the put together like human being that I want to be. And what I love about this topic, so mindfulness is something in the past where our episodes have been more structured, and we've maybe gone through with you the seven steps of John Kabat-Zinn's mindfulness, explanation, all these things. But like we mentioned in last week's episode, if you haven't checked it out, go check it out. It's starting to become a fan favorite, which we're so delighted and surprised. So in light of this year, where our intention at Soulful Wellness is to reclaim the levity, to experiment, to start up with of the week,
what we go through of living our lives and the responses we have to these unfortunate events. Like, even calling them unfortunate events makes me smile, because I'm like, even that's a little dramatic.
Series of unfortunate events.
Right, like knocking the water over. Yeah, it did go, but it was unbelievable how it went very close to but not on a stack of computers. And it went very close to but not on a stack of brand new books. And it was just so perfectly set up to show me that it really wasn't a thing. I was so ready to make it a thing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. It didn't need to be a thing.
It's interesting because even as much studying as one can do, we love, one of our favorite books is Taming Your Inner Gremlin, which is about the inner critic. Even as much work and studying and practice that we do at it, it's interesting to me why it keeps coming up, and I think I've accepted the fact this is just a lifelong journey, but I've been finding the same thing where I'm like, my inner gremlin is just ready. I'm ready to berate myself. Like when I was talking about last week, we did a little video, but we weren't able to record it because we were technologically just
not
very
everything
impaired.
Works all at the same time on the same day. We got the video, we didn't get the audio portion.
I had a similar water spill situation at Pilates, and my first thought was to be super embarrassed and judgmental of myself. And I even had a person like point at me and tell me about it, like, your water bottle is, and I'm like, I created an entire flood. And I even went as far to mention it to my friend that I was with after, to almost like I know I did that, like, I'm owning it, and I could have just let it go. But there's so many of these instances where the natural reaction is for us to like freak out, overreact, which I've been doing a lot of lately, or berate ourselves.
Right, self-berating, just in a disproportionate amount to the event itself. Like the smallest event, I'll really dig in my head with the messages I'm sending myself. And I don't cut in with like, whoa, pause, lady, come on, back it up. You are getting way carried away. It's just XYZ.
I think I always get super curious about the why, and maybe sometimes too curious and overthinking. But I do wonder, like, is it because we've been in this season of of darkness and extreme challenge. And it's sort of like wears you down to a point where you're at that vulnerable place almost to yourself or to the deeply negative aspects of your mind that'll overpower you in that moment. Like, that's what I'm so curious about. I'm like, why am I so overreactive when these things don't warrant that?
I think it's the deep-seated perfectionist in me wants to never, ever, ever make even the tiniest of mistakes. So if I were being purposeful and careful and living my life in an elegant and graceful way, I would never accidentally knock over a whole vase full of water and plants. And that's, I mean, there's no one who does that. You imagine how slowly and methodically you'd have to go through life to never bump into something.
Talk
never
about sloth.
I mean, then it would just be like creepy, right? I mean, if you never, bumped into a door jamb or bumped into a counter, I pretty much do all of that daily. And it's just... part of it's distractibility and part of it's probably moving a little too quickly, but part of it is also just living my life and being a busy person who's trying to accomplish a lot of things each day.
Yeah, so I hear you talking to your perfectionist like through talking out loud, almost like, I am a busy human and here are explanations and I don't need to be perfect. And it's just fascinating to me how our perfectionists like have this tendency to pop up unannounced and come in different ways, like through anxiety or overreactions, when we've been so conscious even to be like, hey, I see you. I know you're there, perfectionist. You don't even need to exist. Like, it's okay. And they're like,
and to come in guns blazing. Like, the gremlin never says like, ooh, you probably should have just been a little more careful. Never. It's always
like, oh, you
like,
idiot.
oh, of course,
again.
very, so you, just completely not appropriate for the situation. And you're right. And that's us trying to be conscious.
Yeah, I know. It just feels like the opposite of freedom. It feels so constricting. And it's almost like, when we overreact about things, which I've been doing so much lately, like even the scratch on the floor and the mantle, and I'm like, oh no, this is the end of the world. And then it becomes something so much bigger, like, wow, you don't take care of your house. You're not even appreciative. Like, why? And it feels so restrictive.
It absolutely, the flip side, if you said, okay, I'm going to avoid these things, what does the flip side look like? And my hypothesis is that the flip side is very unattractive, because in my case, that would look like moving really slowly and carefully. Like, that's not me. That's so awkward. It's not even who I want to be. I think then I would just be frustrated with myself for taking so dang long to do everything. Maybe it looks like having things that I could knock over not there, and that's not what I want either. Like, I like having plants.
What if we put an obstacle like in our house of like things that we're gonna knock over and then accidentally inevitably knock them over and then try to laugh it off? Like, my
life is practice.
I know.
Like, and I'm thinking for you, what's the flip side? Okay, so the really extreme flip side is not decorating for Christmas because your house is really new and it's really pristine. And if you don't want to mar it or muck it up, that means not bringing a tree in that's going to drop pine needles everywhere. And even when you vacuum those suckers up, you still find them months later. You'll like pull it out of a pillow on your sofa or something months later. But that's not the life you want either.
Okay, so my question for you and for me is, what does mindfulness look like for you right now, or what does it not look like for you now?
Well, my big takeaway from today's incident was, remember your tools. Remember, there are pieces to mindfulness, and I'm never going to be the truly mindful, meditative, the stereotype of the monk who puts the grape in the mouth and like feels it. Like, no, who has time for that? And all the things I personally wish to accomplish in a day. So when something inevitably goes wrong, I need to remember that pause step. And maybe for other people, it's a different step. But for me, it was forgetting to pause, cut in to all the negative messaging that's getting ready to explode into my brain, and pausing and saying, wait, hold on. What happened? Not good. But really, not bad. I can handle this. I can clean this up. I can clean this up in a matter of minutes. Nothing is irreversible. Nothing's broken. Nothing's ruined. It's just a matter of my cleaning it up, and I can handle that. So responding, not letting myself react in that big way.
Congrats on being a human.
Thank you.
I love that so much.
I throw the question back to you.
I think that to your point about being responsive versus reactive, I think I would challenge myself to look at, okay, this is going to sound like super meta and maybe a bit confusing, but when I am reactive or overreactive, when it inevitably happens because we're human, how do I react to that reaction? Okay. Do I judge myself? Do I berate myself? Do I freak out? Or do I do the pause like you were saying? And I wonder if that would hopefully create a muscle memory to like beat the overreacting. Because, okay, my goal is to eventually just laugh things off. But I'm just like not there yet, you guys. I'm just not there yet. And I think it's going to be a long road maybe. I'm anticipating that of habits and habit stacking. Does that answer your question? No, but I think that it's helpful along the journey.
Well, it does answer. You're talking about the aftermath.
Yeah.
Like when it all blows over and calms down and you're reflecting back on, wow, that was a doozy. That's where most of the time it is going to be laugh-offable. It's going to be, well, that's behind me. I'm going to learn from how I reacted to that or how I responded to that. I'm now using them interchangeably. I realize they're two different things. Whichever you did in the instance.
Yeah.
And use that as information going forward. Rarely does anything happen that really is a big enough deal that you shouldn't laugh it off. Every now and then something is like, oh, I should really dig into that one. But most things, like all the fuck-ups of the week that we've done so far, are things that we just learn from and move on.
You know, I'm focused on the repair. Have you heard of that term in relationships or conflict management where it's not, it's about how you fight, right? With your partner. Are you fighting respectfully, arguing, you know, in a way that is sane and good for both parties.
Constructive versus destructive.
And then the focus also is on the repair of like, okay, you fight, everyone fights, every partner goes through arguments. It's inevitable. It's how you fight and then how do you repair it? I think that's what I'm focused on with me, myself, my inner gremlin is the repair. Like, okay, cool, we fucked up again. And oh no, we overreacted again in the moment, because it also is a nervous system response. Like, I'm on a journey of regulating the nervous system. She's out of whack. And I need to sort of embrace like some patience, some compassion, and then the repair. Like, okay, you freaked out. How can you learn from it? How can you move on?
All right, you bring up a really interesting point that I had thought of, and then I thought, well, that's a whole separate episode, is when you mention how you are with other people versus how you are with yourself. I am a very different person with other people than I am with myself. With other people, I do pause. And I'm talking, generally speaking, I am not very judgmental. I am very accepting and compassionate. and I don't extend those same courtesies to myself. And that's something I've known for a while and I've been working on for a while, but old habits die hard and I'm still working on it, extending those same compassions and courtesies to myself. And so it's interesting that you brought that up because I thought of that and then I was like, oh, that's a whole
journey.
Whole other thing. But when speaking to ourselves, why, if my default, like I don't have to remind myself to be gentle with other people, why do I have a whole different response system to myself? When it's me, why does it involve having to break in and say, pause, remember, speak kindly to yourself?
Well,
why can't I borrow some of the way I naturally interact with others? I don't know.
Well, I think that that's a pervasive issue. And that would take, I feel like we'd have to bring on an expert. We got to work with a psychologist on that. But I think it truly is a pervasive issue that all of us deal with. We're much harder on ourselves. And it's such a journey through life, through this human experience. So what do we think we're most excited about? Like when you're bringing up this relationship with yourself, I'm thinking about mirror work and I'm like, ooh, could I implement a little bit of that this month? Some affirmations that feel authentic and feel good. I actually wrote on my mirror recently my little mantras for the time being, I'll say. I'm not doing a yearly thing. Maybe it's like this month or just as however long it resonates, really.
Yep.
I put be still, movement, because movement begets more movement and momentum. And one more thing I can't remember, but I put it on my mirror just as like a little reminder.
That's good because if you don't have that visual reminder, that actual reminder in a place to remind yourself, it can't just be here. That's not a good enough reminder. That's how you come back to it and you make progress with it, because every time you see the mirror, boom, oh, an angel got its wings.
Yeah. Oh, that's cute.
I watched.
Is that what you think when you hear that ding?
That only because we watched It's a Wonderful Life again this year at Christmas, and when a bell rings, an angel gets its wings. And I hadn't watched that movie in years, so that time I did.
I've never watched it.
Oh, you have to.
I know, full disclosure.
So good.
So as we wrap up today's episode, we got a few housekeeping items, a few reminders.
Yes. So the hat is sitting here, not necessarily as home decor, although it works that way too.
Don't forget, if you haven't already left us a rating and review on iTunes/Apple Podcasts, we will be entering your name in a drawing. You have until January 31st, and if your name gets picked, you get so much swagger with this soulful beanie. Thank you so much for joining Soulful Society. We're so excited to have you on video, or to, I guess, have you watching us on video. Give us your feedback. Please email us sfowpodcast@gmail.com with your feedback, with your thoughts, questions, anything you want. We love hearing from you. It was so much fun emailing with you, Gabby. We love you guys. Peace, love, and light. Yay! The Soulful of Wellness hosts are certified health and wellness coaches. This podcast is intended to inform and entertain listeners on their wellness journey. This podcast is meant to enhance, not replace, listeners' care from doctors, therapists, or other medical providers. Soulful, soulful.